I'm going to talk about some of the flaws in capitalism and capitalist sort of ideology and thinking. I'm going to use my first example I want to use, and maybe this is the example I'm going to just center around for this, time right now, is look at oil and gas. We have technology available that's more sustainable, that's better for the environment, solar, wind, all these type of energies, renewable energy. I'm not an expert on it, but it exists. I know that oil and gas are needed to make a lot of the materials for those things. However, if we're just using oil and gas to kind of fuel our cars, and there's only a finite amount of it, then it's eventually going to run out. At the same time, it's destroying the planet. We're putting more carbon in the air, and at the same time, we're relying on something that's just a finite resource. So we're going to have to get off of it eventually. So why don't we? So the problem is, again, it's this capitalist ideology. It's like, well, it's at least connected to it, since Rockefeller in the early days, when oil just became this fuel, used as fuel, and became abundant and became a gigantic industry, they've gained a ton of power, and they still maintain that power, and everybody's relying on the oil and the gas. So they use their money and power to make it seem like renewable energy and clean energy is not possible, or we shouldn't be trying harder to put it in place. And they're using their power to do that because they know that they can continue to profit off of oil. And that's what they've been doing. So that's what they're going to continue to do. They can use their power and money to fund studies that get them results that they want to show people, that they want to promote, even if they're not true. They can talk about how it's more efficient. They can talk about how, solar energy is just not going to work, and all these other things that aren't really even true, but they can just make it seem like that's the case. It's another example. Like, let's think of smoking. Big tobacco. Tobacco gets going. They're selling it to people. A lot of people get hooked on it. Then for years, before it gets exposed, it's partially exposed. People realize that it's causing negative health effects. It's causing cancer. But that's known for years before it really hits the public, because the industry knows it, and then they try to cover it up. And then when people try to fight against it, they use their money and power to win court cases and cover things up even more and continue to market it to people and whatever. So even now, people still smoke. And I don't know if there's a whole lot we can do to, there's things we can do to influence people to not smoke, or to smoke less and things like that. But the point is, once these corporations get large enough and get enough power, even if they serve no purpose anymore, or there's something right there ready to replace them, but it's small, the bigger corporations that are already in place, the older ones, can just use their power to crush them, to just kind of defame them, or just make them seem like they're not relevant, or they're not useful, or things like that. So that's a flaw. Another thing about capitalism and just the system that we have is, think about automation. I hear this all the time, where people are like, well, you're going to lose jobs if you have machines, when machines are replacing people. But to me, ever since I was a kid and I first heard this, it just seemed like just a nonsense idea. It's only the system that we have that promotes that sort of thinking. people shouldn't need to work more than they want to, especially if it's a job that you're just doing just to get money, just to pay for something else, just to pay for food, just to pay for housing and things like that. If we are producing enough with the machines to support people, to provide for people, then we shouldn't need to work more. Like if we invent a machine that can, plant seeds in a field or whatever, whereas people prior to that, it was 10 people planting seeds in a field. Now all these people don't have to do that. You just have one person running the machine, and 10% of the time. To me, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? But it's only in the system that we have where that thought of as a bad thing. Now, 9 people don't have a job. They don't have hours, so they're not going to be getting paid a wage. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, the money is there. Again, going back to what I've talked about before, there's a ton of money around in productive capacity. It's not about making people work for a wage. Like that, to me, that whole idea is antiquated. It's like we got to get past that. That's why I do like the concept of UBI, Universal Basic Income. There's enough money, there's enough resources around. We shouldn't have to work extra, or we shouldn't all have to just work the standard, like, I'm working 40 hours a week just to get insurance and just to get enough money to barely get by. I mean, there's enough money. It's just that, and there's enough resources. It's just that, if we all are renting ourselves out to corporations, that helps these people that are running them get richer, and it helps people that are investing in them in Wall Street and other places like that get richer, and it just keeps this inequality intact. It keeps inequality growing. It keeps their power maintained. So we're restricting our own power as the majority of the population by not thinking past that, by not looking at it like, this is our society and we can shape it how we want to. We don't have to work for wages. We don't have to work for low wages, especially. We can share with each other. We can determine how we want to distribute resources and allocate things. Even right now, there's a lot of people working, and housing is unaffordable for a lot of people. There's a lot of people working, and healthcare is unaffordable for people. These aren't problems that can't be fixed. National healthcare systems are more efficient than these private corporations, private healthcare companies, and insurance companies specifically competing with each other. It's just that it's not going to be paid by individuals or corporations once you're already employed by them. You're not getting stuff taken out of your paycheck. Yes, it would be paid for in taxes, but the amount you're paying more in taxes doesn't even equate the amount that we're already paying out of our paychecks, and still getting a low standard of healthcare in this country compared to, relative to the amount of resources that we have. So, yes, again, these problems can be fixed. It's just that we got to talk about them. We're not really there's a lot of propaganda and ideas out there about the free market and all this other stuff that just really doesn't, it's not realistic. It's just out there to promote ideas that benefit the 1% or the 1/10 of 1%, the extra rich people, the rich investors, to support old systems like big oil and those things. We can do a lot better. So I'd like to create a sense of urgency around that and just challenge people to think how would you want, if you could picture a society that's better, how could we build a bridge to get to that place? What are some things we can do? I got a few ideas in this video, but it's an ongoing conversation, and we're kind of behind. So, what more can we do, and how can we organize around it?